Hello peoples of the internet, it's Mo, and this is my review of The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. So I recently finished this book over the Tome Topple readathon, and if you've been watching my videos recently, you'll already know that I really enjoyed this, but I wanted to give it its own video because it really is deserving of a little bit of a deeper look. This book is so many different things. It's cunning, it's challenging, it's brutal and relentless, and it's heart-wrenching, but it's also the best book that I've read so far this year. It's about suffering and morality and politics, and it's about how bad things happen to good people, and about how sometimes evil men prosper, and about how sometimes good can come even out of evil that has happened. And I think it's actually a lot easier to talk about this book in terms of those themes than it is to talk about it in terms of like the actual plot, because this is basically a 1,000-page book and a lot of stuff happens, and it's not the sort of book that centers around an event, but is more about life. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the plot of this, but there's no way that I can really cover what's all in here. But this book is historical fiction. It's set in the 12th century. Over a large span of years, there are a number of time jumps that happen in it, even though you're still following the same characters. But it's basically covering the period of the War of Succession that happened between the reign of Henry I and Henry II in England. And you follow a number of different characters throughout this. So you have the prior of a monastery, you have the builders who are working on reconstructing a church, you have one of the local lords, you have a girl who used to be part of the local nobility but has fallen from that position. And because of all of these different viewpoints, what you're really getting is different points of view on life during that time, but also life during that sort of a political upheaval, and the ways that things like a War of Succession and the type of anarchy that comes with it affect people at all these different levels of society. And you get to see how some of the people are able to use that to their advantage, and others are the ones who get taken advantage of. And yeah, there's just a lot in this to unpack. Most of the time when you hear people talking about the plot of this book, they'll say, well, it's about a cathedral. And that's true, if not wholly accurate, in that it's about so much more than that. But all of the characters and things that are going on in this book are connected to each other by the building of a cathedral. And so this is also in certain ways about cathedral architecture and the way that that changed in Europe at this time period. But it's really just about life and about people. And there are some really great characters in this book. There are also some really despicable characters in this book. And as I said earlier, it is quite heart-wrenching at points. And there were points when I was reading this book when I wasn't like trying to move forward to the next chapter so I could, you know, see the heroes succeed, but just so that I could see the villains fail, because I really wasn't sure how much hope there was for a happy ending while I was in the middle of this, although it does end relatively happily. But I knew from something that happens early on in the book that this one guy, who, you'll know who it is if you read it, is just a terrible person, was going to suffer at the end. And there were bits of this where that's all I was reading for, was to get to that point, because at least that would give me some sort of like closure on everything. And I'm not normally that sort of person reading a book. Like, I'm in it for the heroes and I don't really care so much about what happens to the villains as long as they're not like, you know, the ones winning the day. But yeah, some really despicable, I need another adjective to go along with them, but it suits really well, characters in this book. And on that line, I would like to put out a warning that there is a rape scene in this book. I knew about this before reading it, and so when I saw it coming, I just skipped like the page or two, it was fairly short, in which that happened. I think that as an occurrence in the story, because of the effect that it has on the plot and the characters who have to deal with this, that it was necessary for the story to be what it was and to be as powerful as it was. But I didn't feel like the experience of reading the details was necessary to my reading of the story. And so whether you choose to read that section or not, I think you should know that it's there. I know some people care more than others about those types of things in their books, but I did want to put that out there. There are also a number of other sort of grotesque things, deaths and things that happen in here, but that was the major one that kind of stuck out to me as this is an adult book. And while it is a bit painful at times, it's also heartwarming at times, and it's so thought-provoking, and it is so worth your while. So if this is the type of thing that you like to read, even on occasion, I very highly recommend this book. Yeah, so let me know, any of you who have read it, if you agree or have any other thoughts to add or etc. Or if you're considering reading it, let's have a chat about it down in the comments, and I will be talking to you guys again next time. Happy reading.